My name is Ganyat Sadiq, and I'm the Advocacy Officer for Justice for All Canada. This is a nonprofit organization focused on preventing genocide against minorities, communities using our consultative role at the United Nations. We are gathered today on the unceded, unsurrendered land of the Anishinaabe Algonquin. Over the past 7 months, we have exposed the ongoing genocide in Palestine to the Canadian government right here on Parliament Hill. We have called on the Canadian government to uphold human rights principles and demand an end to Israel's relentless collective punishment on Palestinians. This includes confronting Israel's decades-long of apartheid, its prolonged occupation of Palestinian territories, and the suffocating 17-year blockade of Gaza. Yet here we are again, confronted by the harrowing aftermath of the Israeli government's deliberate attack on Palestinian civilians in the Rafah Tal al-Sultan area, an alleged safe zone. The images are devastating. Bodies burned to ashes, charred and blackened beyond recognition, children decapitated and torn apart by massive bombs, parents clutching their dead and burned children screaming in horror, and rescuers pulling out charred remains from burning tents, with wounded victims being rushed to hospitals with horrific injuries. While the Canadian government has acknowledged the heinous nature of the Israeli government's actions, the government's approach remains disappointingly cautious and reserved. It is clear, indecision and superficial responses can no longer be tolerated. Justice tents cannot protect unarmed Palestinians from 2,000-pound bombs. They cannot shield Canadian students from the brutal force used by police to dismantle their peaceful encampments. Since April 27th, students and faculty across Canadian universities have courageously set up encampments on their campuses, demanding that their institution cut ties with Israel amidst the ongoing crisis in Gaza. Historically, students have led the charge for justice and peace on campuses in the fight for Palestinian liberation, including the peaceful movement against the Vietnam War and the South African apartheid movement. Campuses remain spaces for robust debate, dialogue, and calls for change, not areas for suppression. Today, Justice for All Canada stands in solidarity with these peaceful encampments. We call upon the Canadian government, both federally and provincially, to protect the right to protest, to listen, and address the demands being raised. We strongly condemn any aggressive measures or police involvement in forcefully removing students from their encampments. In accordance with international law, we urge university administrators to reject complicity and listen to student voices for divestment from Israeli entities implicit in genocide. And we also urge to avoid penalizing students or allies for their activism. The urgency of the protest is undeniable, and I thank you all for being here today. I would now like to introduce our first speaker, Caitlin Anderson, a PhD student in the Faculty of Communications and Media Studies at the University of Calgary, as well as a former journalist and digital rights policy activist and the organizer of the University of Calgary's Encampment.
Thank you very much. So my name is Caitlin Anderson. I'm a PhD student at the University of Calgary. I'm also one of the students that was assaulted by riot police after my university administration invited them onto our campus. Like many schools around the world and across Canada, students in Calgary made the decision to speak out against the genocide and decades-long occupation of Palestine. The University of Calgary has economic investments and partnerships with companies that profit off of the surveillance, the occupation, and the murder of Palestinians, including weapons and technology manufacturers, including Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Honeywell. The full extent to which the UFC props up and benefits Israel's genocide in Gaza is unclear, which is why we are demanding that our university fully disclose all direct investments made by the school, as well as full divestment from companies complicit in genocide. I've been on and off at the Calgary campus for the better part of 2 decades, having done my undergraduate and master's degree at the school. And on May 9th, the day of our encampment, I'd never been more proud to be part of the campus community. Throughout the day, the encampment kept growing and growing as people stopped to talk with us and laugh and sing and eat and just be in community with one another. Our campus in our city isn't known for its activism, and the large number of students that showed up and the huge ways in which our community came together around us was really incredible and gave me a lot of hope for the future. Before the sun had set, that optimism transformed into confusion as police surrounded our camp, dressed in riot gear with helmets, shields, and guns. After our camp was fully dismantled, they advanced on students anyways. We were singing arm in arm, and the Calgary Police Service brutalized us with batons and shields, kicking our legs and tear gassing us. They shot pepper bullets all around us and threw stun grenades at us, which I've learned are designed to shock the nervous system. One landed inches from my feet, and everything went white and made a sound I can't even begin to describe. I left campus coughing and gagging from the pepper spray and tear gas and in total shock. At urgent care, I had a CT scan done because doctors were concerned that the police had fractured my skull. Since then, I've been doing my best to keep up with my research while coping with a concussion. Like all Canadians, students have a right to protest. As a PhD student, I am so privileged to be able to spend my time on campus. And I think that as public institutions, universities should serve not only students, but the wider community. University campuses are special places to gather, to debate, and to challenge ingrained ways of thinking. And as previous charter cases have made clear, including a 2020 decision centered in Alberta, campuses are protected places when it comes to freedom of expression. The University of Calgary administration violated those rights when they chose to sic riot police on us instead of engaging with us, their own students. Despite this, I've only become more proud to be part of the University of Calgary community. Because the U of C is not its administration. It is its faculty, its staff, and its students. In the weeks following the violent suppression of our charter rights, our community has shown us so much support in almost daily rallies and events, including a demonstration yesterday where faculty and staff, donning helmets, made a show of care by making a circle around students and proclaiming that anyone wishing us harm would have to go through them first. Their helmets, a symbolic protection against the culture of fear and intimidation created by university administration for the simple act of speaking out against genocide. I want to pause to thank them and everyone who spoke up on our behalf. It has meant so much, and we feel your care. In addition to our calls to disclose and divest, we are also calling on the university to adopt a zero tolerance policy towards anti-Palestinian racism on campus, as well as the provision of mental health care support for Palestinian students and for those who have been made to feel unsafe on campus due to police action on May 9th. I and fellow students, as well as more than 600 faculty and staff at the U of C, are calling for the resignation of President Ed McCauley and for a full independent investigation into the actions of the Calgary Police Service, for the transparency into the decisions and communications that led up and followed the events of May 9th. Disclose, divest, we will not stop, we will not rest. Thank you for your time.
Salam Kafri, a Palestinian student at the University of Calgary.
Thank you. I want to thank Justice for All Canada for providing this platform for students to share their voices. My name is Salam Kafri. I'm a student and representative for the student movement at University of Calgary. The Calgary student movement is supported by students, faculty, alumni, and community members. We stand for what many other encampments also stand for, and in simple terms, is for the university to disclose and divest in regimes that oppress and suppress Indigenous and marginalized groups globally. These are the same demands that we have been shared with administration with no avail. So I want to call upon the decision makers and administration who have failed to engage in open dialogue with students for months and months, which have passed. Both President Edward McCauley and Interprovost and Vice President Academic Penny were there in it. During our encampments, we had the blessing of Indigenous elders to be on stolen land, and it is our right to peacefully protest a matter that has made us complicit in genocide. The University of Calgary has called police to dismantle a Palestinian BDS encampment on day one of its uprising. Administration chose to protect their stolen land instead of their students. Calgary police resorted to using force to disperse protesters and made arrests, although promises were made that this would not happen if we took down our own encampments. This resulted in many individual injuries, ranging from broken bones to concussions that you heard. Although students have been forced off the encampment, we have not abandoned our cause. Be a trailblazer, they say. Don't make too much noise, though. Be disruptive, but not that kind of disruptive. They want us to be change makers, but call us troublemakers when we try to change too much. I've come to recognize that it is not us who are freeing the people of Palestine, but it is the people of Palestine freeing us and highlighting the colonial structures that still exist in our society. I want to thank all the students who bravely stood and protected the rest of the student body as they cleaned up the encampments. Because with the events that took place on May 9th, the brutalization of CPS onto the student body who peacefully protested using flashbangs and pepper bullets was unjust. And as I sit here attending a systems conference, we discussed the concepts of slowing down. Yet it is the people who are complicit in this genocide that choose to allow us to slow down while genocide still occurs. We do demand a ceasefire, and we demand transparency, and we demand divestment in order to properly have a roundtable dialogue and move forward together.
Thank you so much to both our speakers for their remarks. To close, we call on the Canadian government to advocate for Canadian institutions, including colleges and universities, to end their support for Israeli entities with involvements in war crimes and illegal settlement. We also call for sanctions on the Israeli war cabinet, including Prime Minister Netanyahu. Accountability should be enforced through sanctions, including both economic restrictions and travel bans directed at Netanyahu and his government. We also call for support of the case brought by South Africa under the Genocide Convention at the ICJ, and to champion the investigations made by the ICC and recognize its jurisdiction. We also demand a two-way arms embargo to end any and all military aid and trade agreements contributing to Israel's atrocities. Canada should not be purchasing anything that advertises as battle-tested on Palestinians under occupation. Thank you all for being here today, and we'll answer any questions if there are some.
If you are on Zoom and have any questions, please use the raise hand function. Si vous êtes sur Zoom et avez des questions, s'il vous plaît, utilisez la fonction main levée. Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Merci.
Recording stopped.